They tried resuscitating him, taken to a hospital where he was pronounced dead.
On July 24th, the world was caught off guard by the sudden news of Hulk Hogan's death. But now, things have taken an even stranger turn. Newly leaked recordings show Hulk Hogan's final moments at home, and they're raising serious questions. His death might not have been as natural as we all thought. Let me break it down. Hulk's last recording. In the digital age, where every moment can become viral content within seconds, few videos have captured the collective heartbreak of millions, quite like the footage that emerged on July 24th, 2025. The leaked recordings and videos show Hulk Hogan being rushed from his Clearwater, Florida home on a stretcher, with paramedics desperately performing CPR. This haunting footage, which quickly spread across social media platforms, has become the last visual record of Terry Jean Belea's earthly journey. What makes these final recordings particularly poignant is how they contrast sharply with the vibrant, engaging persona Hogan had displayed just weeks before his death. The man who had dominated wrestling rings across the globe, becoming not just a sports entertainer, but a genuine cultural phenomenon whose influence extended far beyond the squared circle, was reduced to those final, desperate moments captured on a neighbor's phone camera. Hulk Hogan passed away on July 24th, 2025, at the age of 71, following a cardiac arrest. The wrestling world and millions of fans worldwide mourned the loss of someone who had transcended sports entertainment to become a household name recognized in every corner of the globe. But the leaked footage of his final moments has added a layer of tragic reality to what had previously been an almost mythical existence. In the weeks leading up to his passing, Hogan had been surprisingly active, giving what would unknowingly become his final interviews and public appearances. The last major interview Hogan gave was with Theo Von on the podcast this past weekend, a conversation that now takes on profound significance as we examine his final thoughts and reflections. In this extensive dialogue, we witnessed a man who, despite his legendary status, remained remarkably grounded and introspective about his journey from a struggling musician in Tampa, Florida, to becoming one of the most recognizable figures in entertainment history.
And I don't mean to be an egomaniac, but I mean, I could actually wrestle anybody at that time and sell out. We sold out everywhere constantly for years.
During this final extended interview, Hogan displayed the same charismatic storytelling ability that had captivated audiences for decades. He spoke candidly about his relationship with fellow wrestling legend Ric Flair, painting vivid pictures of their adventures and misadventures together. The stories he told revealed not just the larger-than-life personas these men portrayed, but the very human friendships and rivalries that existed behind the scenes. One particularly touching moment came when Hogan reflected on Flair's serious health crisis, demonstrating the deep bonds that existed between these warriors of the squared circle.
I walked in, the doctor pulled me aside and goes, "Hey, your buddy here has destroyed his body, the inside of some of his intestines and stuff."
The interview revealed a man who had learned to compartmentalize his pain, both physical and emotional. When discussing his numerous surgeries and health challenges, Hogan spoke with a matter-of-fact acceptance that belied the severity of his condition.
In the last 10 or 12 years, I've had like 25 surgeries.
This physical deterioration wasn't just a recent development. Throughout his final interviews, Hogan repeatedly referenced the toll that decades of professional wrestling had taken on his body. He had undergone multiple back surgeries, knee and hip replacements, and various other procedures that had left him significantly diminished from his peak physical condition. In the months before his passing, Hogan faced health challenges, including a neck procedure in May 2025. The stark contrast between the articulate, thoughtful man in these final interviews and the desperate medical emergency captured in the leaked footage serves as a sobering reminder of how quickly life can change. The same voice that had entertained millions with stories of his wrestling adventures and business ventures would soon be silenced forever, leaving only these recorded conversations as his final testament. But perhaps most poignantly, in his final television appearance promoting his Real American beer, Hogan appeared notably smaller and more fragile than the imposing figure fans remembered from his heyday.
We're the only beer company that actually lives here, and there was an open lane that somebody dropped the ball on marketing-wise. I'm not going to name any names, and so we just started, and we came up with the name, the Real American Beer, way before we got our nation back.
This brief interview, which would prove to be one of his last public statements, showed a man still engaging with fans and promoting his business ventures, seemingly unaware that his time was drawing to a close. The interviews from his final months revealed a man who had found peace with his legacy, even as he continued to battle the physical consequences of his chosen profession. He spoke openly about his faith, his family, and his ongoing business ventures with an optimism that made his sudden passing all the more shocking to those who knew him. In one of his final final major podcast appearances with Patrick Bet David Hogan, delivered what many now consider his most profound and personal interview. Here, he opened up about subjects he had rarely discussed publicly, including his relationship with his father and the moment that changed his understanding of life and death forever. The recording of his father's final moments, which Hogan shared in this interview, provides insight into the spiritual journey that had shaped his later years.
And my chest on his chest. And I went, I jumped back.
This experience had profoundly impacted Hogan's worldview and seemed to give him a perspective on mortality that would prove eerily prescient. His description of feeling his father's spirit leave his body had convinced him that there was more to existence than the physical realm, a belief that appeared to give him comfort in his own final days. The juxtaposition between these thoughtful final interviews and the leaked footage of his last moments creates a complex narrative about celebrity, privacy, and mortality in the digital age. While the recordings of his conversations will be remembered for their depth and authenticity, the leaked video of his medical emergency raises uncomfortable questions about our society's relationship with death and privacy. Throughout these final interviews, Hogan consistently demonstrated the same qualities that had made him beloved by millions: his authenticity, his willingness to be vulnerable, and his ability to connect with people from all walks of life. Whether discussing his business ventures, his health struggles, or his spiritual journey, he maintained the genuine warmth that had endeared him to generations of fans. Those final recordings capture someone who had found a way to make peace with both his triumphs and his failures, creating a legacy that would endure long after his physical presence was gone. The making of an icon. To truly understand the impact of Hulk Hogan's death, we must journey back to the crucible where legends are forged, the wrestling territories of the 1970s, and the revolutionary vision that would transform not just one man's career, but an entire industry. The story of how Terry Bollea became Hulk Hogan is far more complex and fascinating than the simple narrative of good triumphing over evil that he portrayed in the ring. The wrestling business of the 1970s was a brutal territorial affair where respect was earned through blood, sweat, and the willingness to endure unimaginable punishment. When young Terry Bollea first walked into a wrestling training facility, he encountered a world that would make modern WWE's Performance Center look like a daycare facility. The established wrestlers deliberately broke his leg on the first day and told him never to return. This wasn't hazing. It was a test of character that separated the dreamers from those who had the intestinal fortitude to survive in wrestling's unforgiving landscape. But what happened next revealed the character that would eventually captivate millions. Rather than retreating to the safety of his previous life as a musician, Hogan returned months later with a different attitude entirely. His father's words had struck deep.
Don't you ever let anybody hurt you again. So, it straightened me right up. So a few months later, when my leg was healed, I went back and I had that attitude, because when I was younger, I was real strong and kind of aggressive.
The wrestling territories of that era operated like feudal kingdoms, each with their own unwritten rules and codes of conduct. The business was so territorial that crossing imaginary lines between promotions was considered a grave offense. Wrestlers who violated these boundaries faced consequences that ranged from being blackballed to physical retribution. That Hogan learned not just how to wrestle, but how to survive in a business that chewed up and spat out those who couldn't adapt. His early years were marked by constant struggle and rejection. Wrestling under various names including Sterling Golden and Terry Boulder, he bounced between territories, often quitting when the physical punishment became too much to bear for the meager pay.
Wrestling like 12, 13 times a week, and they're giving me a check for $125.
Oh yeah, when you're beating the shit out of somebody at a Best Western.
Yeah, I was gigging my head for $5 a night.
The pay was so poor that Hogan often returned to his job as a longshoreman in Tampa, where he could make $400 a day loading ships. He was likely the first white longshoreman in the union in Tampa, working primarily alongside Latino and Black colleagues. This experience gave him a different perspective on hard work and respect, lessons that would serve him well when he eventually found his footing in the wrestling business. The breakthrough came when Hogan began to understand that wrestling wasn't just about athletic competition. It was about creating emotional connections with the audience.
Then I figured the business out.
Right.
Then I went back, and one time I slammed somebody. I looked at the crowd, like that, and the reaction got more response than the body slam.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Let me hit somebody in the throat. And then, look, and the reaction got, more. I said, okay, now I got it. It took me a while to figure it out.
This epiphany would prove to be the foundation of everything that followed. While other wrestlers focused on technical perfection, Hogan understood that the crowd's reaction was the ultimate measure of success. He developed an intuitive sense for reading audiences, knowing when to play the hero and when to embrace the role of villain. His international experience, particularly in Japan, added another dimension to his character. Hogan spent significant time wrestling in New Japan Pro Wrestling, where he was known as Ichiban #1. The Japanese wrestling scene was more intense and violent than American wrestling, requiring him to adapt his style and toughen his resolve.
So you were a king there.
As soon as I walked in there, I was over. And
Was it interesting? What was it like? What was the fanhood like, and how they treat fans different in America and Japan?
Well, over in Japan, they treat you like, your royalty. It's just like Brad Pitt and, Tom Brady all in one. You know what I mean?
The turning point came with his appearance in Rocky III, which brought him national recognition outside the wrestling world. This mainstream exposure caught the attention of Vince McMahon Sr., who signed him to the World Wrestling Federation. However, it was McMahon's son, Vince Jr., who would recognize Hogan's true potential and build an empire around his charisma. The partnership between Vince McMahon Jr. and Hulk Hogan was revolutionary in ways that extended far beyond wrestling. McMahon's vision was to break down the territorial system and create a national, then global wrestling promotion. But this required someone with enough star power to draw audiences in territories where they had no previous connection to the wrestler. Hogan possessed that rare quality, the ability to connect with audiences instantly, regardless of their familiarity with his previous work.
I had started the Hulkamania thing in Minnesota.
Got it.
And I had crazy momentum. And if you look back on some of my AWA matches in Minnesota and see how the crowd would react when I'd play that Eye of the Tiger music, that don, 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 don. I'd come out, the place would go crazy.
The decision to expand nationally was unprecedented and dangerous. When Hogan entered territories like Kansas City, he faced real physical threats from established wrestlers who saw him as an invader.
I shouldn't go to, like Kansas City, where Harley Race, this ex-Marine, was the NWA World's Champion. And when I showed up, he tried to burn the ring down at 12 in the afternoon. And then that night when I came to the building, he put a gun to my head.
These weren't storyline threats. They were real dangers faced by a wrestler who was disrupting established territorial boundaries. The fact that many of these hostile wrestlers eventually joined McMahon's organization speaks to both Hogan's drawing power and the inevitable economic reality of the changing wrestling landscape. The birth of Hulkamania is often dated to January 23, 1984, when Hogan defeated the Iron Sheik at Madison Square Garden to win the WWF Championship. But this moment was the culmination of years of preparation, learning, and character development. The political timing was perfect. With Iran holding American hostages and Cold War tensions running high, Hogan's all-American hero character resonated powerfully with audiences hungry for a patriotic figure they could rally behind. The transformation of wrestling from a niche regional sport, mainstream entertainment was largely accomplished through Hogan's star power and McMahon's marketing genius. They introduced elements that seem commonplace now, but were revolutionary at the time. Entrance music, elaborate merchandise campaigns, celebrity guest appearances, and cross-promotional opportunities with movies and television. Hogan headlined 8 of the first 9 WrestleMania events, establishing the annual spectacle as wrestling's equivalent of the Super Bowl. His match against Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3 drew an estimated 93,173 fans to the Pontiac Silverdome, creating one of the most iconic moments in sports entertainment history. But perhaps the most telling aspect of Hogan's character was his ability to maintain the persona even when the cameras weren't rolling.
The kids were real aware of who I was, but the moment I would come home, bro, that Hulk Hogan thing was dropped.
Really?
At the front door. I didn't have any pictures in my house of me. No wrestling crap in the house at all. I didn't want it in my house. Some guys.
This separation between the character and the person was crucial to his longevity. Unlike many wrestlers who became consumed by their personas, Hogan understood that Terry Bollea and Hulk Hogan were different entities. This psychological distance allowed him to survive the pressures of fame that destroyed many of his contemporaries. As we transition to examining his final act and lasting legacy, it's important to understand that Hogan's impact extended far beyond wrestling. He became a cultural phenomenon who influenced fashion, language, and popular culture in ways that are still felt today. The foundation built during these formative years would support a career that spanned nearly 5 decades and touched millions of lives around the world. Legacy of a legend. The final act of Hulk Hogan's extraordinary life reveals a complex tapestry of triumph, controversy, physical sacrifice, and ultimately, a legacy that transcends the squared circle to encompass the very essence of American popular culture. As we examine the twilight years of the man who became synonymous with professional wrestling itself, we discover that his influence reached far beyond entertainment, touching the lives of millions in ways both profound and deeply personal. Hogan's record-breaking achievements tell only part of his story. He was a six-time WWE champion, headlined 8 WrestleMania events, and drew the largest television audience in wrestling history when 33 million viewers watched his match with Andre the Giant in 1988. But numbers, impressive as they are, cannot capture the emotional connection he forged with multiple generations of fans worldwide. Perhaps no single moment better illustrates Hogan's impact than his relationship with children through the Make-A-Wish Foundation. During the 1980s, he was the most requested celebrity by the organization, a testament to his ability to embody hope and strength for those facing their darkest hours. His message of training, prayers, and vitamins wasn't just marketing rhetoric. It represented a philosophy of perseverance that resonated with anyone facing seemingly insurmountable challenges. The transformation from hero to villain and back again during his WCW years demonstrated his remarkable adaptability as a performer. When he shocked the wrestling world by turning heel and forming the New World Order in 1996, it breathed new life into his career and helped WCW compete with WWE during the Monday Night Wars.
And the more evil and the horrible stuff I did, the more people cheered me. So the worse I got, and the nastier I got, and the meaner I got, and the evil as I could be, the people cheered me.
This ability to reinvent himself while maintaining his core appeal proved that Hogan understood something fundamental about entertainment that many of his peers missed. The audience's relationship with him was so deep that they followed him through character changes that would have destroyed lesser performers. Whether he was the all-American hero or the Hollywood villain, fans remained emotionally invested in his journey. However, Hogan's later years were not without controversy. In 2015, he was terminated from WWE after racist comments he made years earlier became public. The scandal temporarily tarnished his reputation, though he was eventually reinstated in 2018. This period revealed both his human fallibility and the complex nature of public redemption in the modern era. The physical toll of his career became increasingly evident in his final years. Having undergone at least 25 surgeries over the past decade, including 10 back operations, Hogan's body bore the scars of nearly 5 decades in professional wrestling. His admission about living with constant pain painted a sobering picture of the price paid for entertaining millions.
Everything hurts, it's hard to explain. Like if I'm gonna brush my teeth and I'm leaning on the counter brushing my teeth, I can't push away. So when I'm done brushing my teeth, I have to lean in like that and then pull back. I can't push like a glass door open. Everything in the gym is short strokes. I can't straighten my arms out.
Yeah.
And then it's the same with my knees, my hips, my back, my neck. But that's because I probably wrestled too long and I didn't get the memo that stuff was fake.
Yet even in pain, Hogan maintained his characteristic humor and perspective. His ability to find lightness in darkness was perhaps one of his most endearing qualities. This resilience wasn't just physical, it was emotional and spiritual, reflecting a depth of character that often went unrecognized beneath the larger-than-life persona. His entrepreneurial ventures in later years showed a businessman who understood the power of his brand. The launch of Real American Beer demonstrated his continued ability to connect with his audience's values and interests. The product's success, coming decades after his wrestling peak, proved that Hulkamania wasn't just a 1980s phenomenon. It was a lasting cultural force that transcended generations. The most profound aspect of Hogan's later years was his spiritual journey. His deep faith became increasingly important as he faced health challenges and personal struggles. In a moving revelation about his father's final moments, he shared an experience that fundamentally changed his worldview.
And all of a sudden I'm leaning and looking at his face and my chest on his chest. And I went, I jumped back. I felt something come out of his body. And when it hit me, I don't know if it went in me or through me, but there's something more than just this meat suit, brother.
This spiritual awakening influenced his approach to life's challenges and his relationships with others. His marriage to Sky Daly, whom he described as a fellow believer, represented a new chapter focused on faith and authenticity rather than public spectacle. Hogan's influence on popular culture extended far beyond wrestling. His appearances in movies like Rocky III, his Saturday morning cartoon, and his reality TV show Hogan Knows Best made him a multimedia star. He appeared on magazine covers, hosted Saturday Saturday Night Live and became a fixture in American popular culture that parents and children could enjoy together. The global reach of his influence cannot be overstated. His work in Japan, where he was known as Ichiban, helped establish WWE's international presence. Wrestling fans in countries around the world knew Hulk Hogan, even when they might not recognize other American celebrities. His red and yellow color scheme became as recognizable internationally as the McDonald's Golden Arches. As news of his death spread on July 24th, 2025, tributes poured in from across the entertainment world. Fellow wrestlers, celebrities, and political figures all acknowledged his unique contribution to American culture. But perhaps the most telling tributes came from ordinary fans who shared stories of how Hogan had inspired them during difficult periods in their lives. The controversy surrounding the leaked video of his final moments reflects the complicated relationship between celebrity and privacy in the digital age. While some criticized the sharing of such intimate footage, others argued that it provided closure and demonstrated the very human end to a larger-than-life figure. The debate itself became part of Hogan's legacy, a final reminder of his ability to generate passionate responses from people who felt they knew him personally. Wrestling historian Dave Meltzer's assessment captures Hogan's historical significance. You can't possibly overrate his significance in the history of the business, and he sold more tickets to wrestling shows than any man who ever lived. This wasn't hyperbole. It was a statistical reality backed by decades of box office records and television ratings. But numbers and records, impressive as they are, tell only part of the story. Hogan's true legacy lies in the millions of people who found inspiration in his message of perseverance, who learned that with enough determination and the right attitude, seemingly impossible obstacles could be overcome. Whether facing childhood illness, personal struggles, or professional challenges, countless individuals drew strength from the example of a man who never gave up, no matter how many times he was knocked down. His death marked the end of an era not just in wrestling, but in American entertainment. He was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame twice, once as an individual in 2005 and again as part of the NWO in 2020, a recognition of his impact both as a solo performer and as part of wrestling's most influential storyline. As we reflect on the life and legacy of Hulk Hogan, we see not just a wrestler or entertainer, but a cultural phenomenon who helped define what it means to be an American hero in the modern era. His story, from the shy, overweight teenager who was afraid to take off his shirt at the beach, to the global icon who headlined the biggest stages in entertainment, embodies the very best of the American dream. The final video of his life, controversial as it may be, serves as a reminder that even legends are mortal. But the ideas he represented, courage in the face of adversity, the power of believing in oneself, and the importance of never giving up, these concepts will endure long after the last wrestling match has been fought and the final bell has rung. In the end, Hulk Hogan's greatest achievement wasn't any championship he won or any record he set. It was his ability to make millions of people believe that they too could overcome whatever challenges life threw at them. That belief, that hope, that indomitable spirit, that's the true legacy of the man who asked an entire generation, "What you gonna do when Hulkamania runs wild on you?" The answer, it turns out, was simple. Believe in yourself, train hard, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, and never, ever give up. In a world that often seems dark and hopeless, that message remains as relevant today as it was when young. Terry Bollea first stepped into a wrestling ring and dared to dream of something bigger than himself. If you love this video, click on the card showing on your screen for more videos like this.